Hey y'all, good morning. I'm back. The new year's here. Now we can't say, oh, I can't wait for the new year. We have to start whatever we said we were going to start. So, those of you that are in Georgia, last week was a little crazy with the snow, but I thought it was so beautiful though. Like it was really, really cool to see that. The last one we had, it wasn't as smooth as that one was last week. I think people stayed off the road so they wouldn't get stuck. And the people who were on the roads, they, even though, they could be a little crazy, it wasn't as bad as that last time we had it. I think it was like 2015 was the last time we had it. But we are here. It's the new year. For those of you that said, this is the year that I'm going to be a homeowner, this is why I am here. So, what you guys don't know, like behind the scenes when I get ready for this show, is I try to look up what everyone is kind of asking about when it comes to real estate. So I always get a lot of different topics on what people are, I guess, Googling. And so I try to talk about those things because I want to give you guys the tips and tricks on what you guys really want to know about. Like it would be easy for me to say I want to talk about this, this, and that, but I want to make sure that we discuss things that people are really asking for. So today's topic is based on what I've read that people are concerned about when it comes to purchasing a home. So the topic for today is going to be how to navigate the legalities of purchasing a home. Because, yes, you are going into a legally binding contract. Okay. So, but there's other moving parts. And that's why it is important to get a trusted advisor like myself to make sure that when you go into this legally binding contract that you are protected. So I'm going to tell you a story about people who like to purchase new construction. When you go to the new construction site, so you see them all over the place. There's DR Horton, there's DRB, there's all these different ones. The agents who work on site, although they are very nice people, they're cool. I'm not bad mouthing them at all, but they represent the builder. Okay. So when you're going into this legally binding contract and you are not represented by a buyer's agent, right? So if you're working on purchasing, a buyer's agent is the person that represents you in that purchase. In a regular transaction, not new construction, there's a listing agent which works with the seller, and like as I mentioned, buyer's agent works with the buyer. So now, fast forward to when you go to new construction, the people on site work for the builder. So essentially, you as a buyer, you don't have anyone protecting you because you are going in there speaking to the agent that's on site that works for the builder. So when it's time to negotiate, right, they're going to negotiate on the behalf of them and their company. They're not going to negotiate on your behalf, right? So now you're into a legally binding contract and you don't have protection, okay? So a real life story that I actually heard yesterday about new construction. So this guy, he put $24,000 down to purchase a new construction. Yes, 24,000. Some builders want you to put a lot, make sure $1,000 without an agent, right? Without an agent. So when he put this money down, he thought, okay, everything is good to go and I'm going to be able to purchase. What he didn't know is in the contract, it says if the materials cost more than what we quoted you, we can increase the purchase price of the house. So he went under contract for 490,000, but because of that stipulation, they were going to raise his purchase price to 570,000. So he no longer qualified for that home. And they said, "Oh well, too bad." And guess what? they kept the $24,000, right? He didn't have anybody protecting him. Like I said, the on-site agent works for the builder. They're not going to advocate for you. Okay, so think about that in the transaction. Now let's go back to when we first submit the offer, because we talked about this before. When you're submitting an offer for the house, it is a contract that your agent, in this scenario, me, I would write out for you. So most agents use a contract. If they're a realtor, they use a contract that already has been written by an attorney. Now, us as the agent, we know what's on there, and we should be able to help you if you have a question on it, but we're not attorneys. But we are going to make sure that when you get into this contract that you are protected, right? So when you get an offer, when you submit an offer, you submit that contract and the seller agrees to it, then you are in a legally binding contract. So a lot of times when us as agents say we're binded, that means we're legally binded to uphold whatever it says on this contract. Now, when you're working with a realtor, they will let you know these are some ways that you can get out of this contract, but these are the only ways that you could get out of this contract. So you have to know, and your agent will educate you on that, or should educate you on that. So the reason why you want to have those stipulations to back out is because most sellers are going to want to have some type of earnest money to show that you're serious. Just like the example with the new construction, that builder wanted $24,000 to make sure that they were serious. Now, when you're buying a home that's already lived in with by someone else, it may not be 24,000, or maybe it will, or maybe it is. But we want to make sure that there's protections in there to make sure that this doesn't happen, that you don't lose the money if you don't happen to purchase this particular home. So I'm going to tell you the 3 ways that you can get out of a contract when you are under contract. So these are called the contingencies of a contract. So these are ways that you could potentially get your earnest money back if if you decide to not purchase this home, or something happens and you can't purchase this home, because life happens sometimes, right? So the first one is your due diligence period. The due diligence period is the period where you get the opportunity to do an inspection on this home. You get an opportunity to take a second look at this home, because sometimes when you first walk into the home, oh, this home is beautiful, I love it, I want to buy it. But then when you come the second time, you start seeing little things like, oh, wait, I didn't notice this, I didn't notice that, or I thought it had this, but it doesn't. Whatever the case may be, that's your opportunity to back out of the contract. That's your due diligence period, and it's negotiable. So some people have a 3-day due diligence. That's all they need. Some people need 5. Some people need 7. Whatever it is, it's negotiable. But if you decide within that period that, no, I don't want to buy this home anymore, you can get your earnest money back. Okay. Now, after the earnest money, another way to get out of the contract, most contracts are going to have a contingency for the finance and appraisal. Even though there's 2 separate things, they actually go together because the lender is the one that actually approves both of those contingencies. And this has happened before. So sometimes you'll do a contingency for 21 days. And when they get closer to the 21 days, the lender may say, I don't know if we're going to be able to go to closing because something just popped up that I didn't see before. This has happened to me. I had a client, and her scores was in the high 7s. She had the money to purchase. Everything looked good. When it was maybe like the second week of us being under contract, an apartment that she lived in before reported on her credit. It was an automatic denial at that point. It's nothing that she did wrong. It's nothing that the lender did miss. It's something that just happened. So there's nothing that we can do. But because it was a contingency in place, and I want to say she put like $3,000 down, she was able to get her money back, right? So if we didn't have that contingency, she would have lost that $3,000. right? So we want to always make sure that we have that financial contingency because life happens. And she was like, well, I don't think I owe that money. And, she has to go through a whole dispute and all these things. But unfortunately, she's going to miss out on this property because the seller's not going to wait for that. So that's, another way. Another way is the appraisal. So the lender is the person who orders the appraisal for you. So when they order the appraisal, they're basing it on what the seller says that this house is worth or they want to sell it for. Right? So let's say they wanted to sell it for 300,000, but then the appraisal comes in and it's 255. Well, me as your agent, I'm going to say, well, you need to bring that price down to 255 because my client is not going to buy a house that is 255, but you're trying to sell it for 300,000, right? But if the seller says, no, I don't want to bring it down to 255. I know it's worth 300,000. That's your opportunity to back out of the contract. And guess what? You get your money back. You get your earnest money back. So those are the three main ways to get your money back. The other part of this is when those contingencies are over and you don't want to purchase the home anymore, you lose that earnest money, or you can't purchase a home anymore. You lose that earnest money. But most agents are going to make sure that when those contingencies are due or coming up, we want to make sure with everybody that you're actually going to close so that you can get your earnest money back. Period, point blank. So I had a client before. It was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and everything was going smooth. And then all of a sudden, it was like we were supposedly almost ready to close. And they told me that he can't close. And I'm like, why? What happened? And it was some underwriting thing and all this, whatever with the lender. And I'm like, well, why didn't you guys tell me this before? Because when I talked to you guys before, everything was good. Why didn't you tell me that before? And they were like, well, we thought we could make it work, this and that, that and that. Well, you just caused my client to lose their earnest money because you forgot to tell me, right? So now I'm going to the lender like, listen, you need to pay this fee because that's unfair that you waited to the last minute. And they did. So although the seller got to keep their earnest money, the lender felt bad and actually gave them the money that they lost. But that doesn't always happen. Some people are like, well, it happens and that's it. You just have to, move on. But it's not right. Okay. So when it comes to those contracts, we want to make sure that we keep up on the dates, make sure that we're going to get to the closing table. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is when we actually get to the closing table, right? The attorney that is there represents the lender, not you. So if you want to, they will answer questions, that are on the contract of when you're at the closing table. But once again, they don't work for you. They work for the lender. So if you are really concerned about what is going to be in the contract or what they're saying in this contract, I would recommend getting an attorney, to bring an attorney with you, because us as agents, we could answer some of these questions, but not all of them, because we're not attorneys. So it sounds scary, but it's really not that bad. Most of the time, I would say the contracts for closing are basically telling you, if you don't pay your mortgage, we're going to foreclose. And that's it. That's like, a lot of it is that. They have like 5 different pages that say the same thing. And a lot of it is, you don't pay, you don't stay. That's it. So it's not anything to really be concerned about. Some of the things that you have questions, with, the attorney can answer. If it's tax related questions, they can't answer. You have to ask your tax advisor. But you're excited to be signing a million docs. But if you really are concerned, you can get a real estate attorney for yourself to come to closing as well. But I've been doing this for a little bit over 10 years. I haven't had anybody bring an attorney with them. because it's not as bad as what it sounds, but it is a legal document that you're getting into. But when we get back, I'm going to talk about some disclosures that can protect you. I've been hearing a lot of people wanting to buy land. I would talk about that. And then also when it comes to the mortgage and financing, those documents as well. So I'll be right back. All right, y'all. So I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. All right. So today we're talking about home inspections, preventative maintenance kind of things, and home warranty and homeowners insurance. So, homeowners insurance. Make sure, please make sure that you have homeowners insurance on your property. Especially, I don't want to say especially Atlanta, especially everywhere. Like, look at what's happening in California with these fires. Now, imagine if they do not have homeowners insurance or fire insurance. And from what I've been hearing, some people's fire coverage was dropped maybe like a month before these fires, right? So, what that tells me is that you want to keep up on what's covered and what's not. So, like in Atlanta, we have rain all the time, there's storms. So, I had a client before, we were under contract, and a tree fell on the house that he was about to purchase. And the listing agent was like, "Oh, we could still close. They're going to get their homeowners insurance." And, um, well, come to find out, the person didn't have the homeowners insurance anymore. So they weren't going to cover it. So I told my client, we need to back out of this contract because th- you're going to have to pay for it if it's not fixed. Right. So make sure that you get homeowners insurance. Now, a lot of lenders, they want to include it in your mortgage payment, which makes it easier for you. But there's some people that are like, you know what, I could just pay it on my own. Make sure that you can pay it on your own, right? At closing, most lenders are going to want you to pay at least for the first year. But after that first year, they're gonna put in something called escrow. So when it's due again, you have it in there. But if you tell them, I don't want to set up an escrow account and I could do it myself, make sure you stay on top of it. Because not having insurance and something happens, insurance is a necessary evil. Okay? Because you don't want to be stuck not having it. Like, as cold as it was this week, some people's pipe burst. If you don't have homeowners insurance, it won't cover. So these are things that I'm going to definitely recommend that you have. So remember, I told you homeowners insurance is different than a home warranty. The home warranty covers those big ticket items that I talked about earlier. And those big ticket items are, your plumbing, your electrical, your appliances, your HVAC. Those are the things that it will cover. So that's different than homeowners insurance. Right? So definitely know that you should have both, but definitely have homeowners insurance. Now, when it's time to pick someone to use for your home inspections, whether you are a buyer or a seller. So when you have a trusted advisor like myself, I do have home inspectors that I've worked with in the past that did a good job, but you can use whoever you want to, right? Don't let anyone make you feel like you have to use theirs. I won't force anybody on you. I would just tell you, okay, I use these people in the past. If you want to use them, here's your information. Now, when you're thinking about cost, the cost of the home inspections are usually between $300 and $500, depending on what you want them to look at. So a generic one could be 300, but if you want a radon test, if you want to have all these other tests that they may offer you, it could be as much as $500. But remember, I talked about earlier, peace of mind. If these things you think that you're going to be worried about, pay for the peace of mind, right? So the home inspectors are also, a lot of them are just like when I talk about being a real estate agent and a realtor. the home inspections, you can actually look them up on the National Association of Home Inspectors, and you can see their credentials. So just like you could check an agent and their credentials, you can also do the same for home inspectors. Okay. Also, look at reviews, right? So I'm telling you my experience with them, but you can also, a lot of them have online. If you want to be there, you have every right to be there. So some inspection companies are like, well, can you come at least an hour so I can have a chance to look at things? And that's totally fine. But you are allowed to be there and ask as many questions as you want. I had a client and she had her list of things that she wanted to make sure as well. And that's totally fine. Ask as many questions as you want. Go around the house and walk with them. You paid for that service. Now, something else that you can do. So let's say we had a list of things that you wanted the seller to take care of, and they said they would. You can actually hire that same inspector back, and they usually charge like $75 or something like that. And they could come back and look at everything to make sure that it was actually done correctly. You have that right as well. Now, sometimes on the inspection report, it would say you should contact an expert, blah, 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 because they're only looking at surface level things. And you may have to get other people involved to make sure that it's correct. You have that right as well. So I had someone that we were thinking about the roof, and we've brought someone that actually, fixes roofs and everything else. And he said, yeah, I think it's a good idea for you to ask for a new roof. Okay, so those are things that can be done. So I got 3 more minutes. So I want to make sure that I talked about everything that I want to talk about. Okay, so after all these things are done, the home inspection, you got your homeowner's insurance, all of that stuff is done. At that final walkthrough, we're going to do a final walkthrough to make sure that everything is good to go before you sign on the dotted line. This has never happened to me, but another agent, right at the final closing, found out there was a flood in that house. And if she didn't have that final walkthrough, she would not have known about that flood. So I always recommend a final walkthrough as well, because these home inspections are being done up front in the beginning of the process. And sometimes it's a 30-day close, sometimes it's a 40-day close. And a lot of things could have happened. And in that case, it was actually a flood that was in the house. So, of course, that had to be taken care of before we can actually move in. So, I'm going to always recommend a final walkthrough as well, just to make sure that all the things that we did up front, that nothing happened after that. Okay. So, today's topic was maintenance and inspection, home warranty versus homeowners insurance. So if you are looking to purchase this year and have more questions about real estate, feel free to call me directly at 678-849-4734. Social media, Trisha the Realtor on Instagram, Trisha the Realtor on Facebook, as well as LinkedIn as well. And I know some of you guys are sad, but TikTok is gone, so I can't give you that anymore. So I hope you guys have an amazing Friday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see y'all next week. Happy Friday, y'all. This has been Tips. Thank you guys for joining. With Trisha the Realtor. Have a great day. To a successful closing. If you are buying your first home,